What's up guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Let's get right into the stories. If that's what you really want. Karen, once upon a time I was working a seasonal retail job at a craft store chain. It is important to note that for the purposes of their sales, lighted tree toppers, lighted decorations, string lights, etc. were all separate categories. On this fateful day, lighted tree toppers were on sale for 30% off. The rest of the lighted decor on that aisle was not. The sales were very clearly marked and the sections designated clearly, as well as the category printed on the package itself. It is even listed in the email that Karen was using to present her coupon. Karen approaches my register with her tree topper. The register recognizes the discounts and applies them automatically in most instances, this being no exception. The 30% applies itself. Your total will be $18.90. Karen then presents her 20% off coupon. I'm sorry ma'am, this coupon is not applicable to sale items. Those aren't on sale. The lights aren't on sale this week. I show the copy of our sale bulletin on my counter. I apologize for the confusion ma'am. This actually falls under the tree topper category. You'll see here it's 30% off. I won't be able to apply the coupon, but you will be getting the already discounted sale price. I am telling you I don't want any sale. You are going to take my coupon. I should probably mention she was in at least once weekly, yelled about sales and coupons every single time, and then declared she was never coming back, only to be back the following week to do the same. Ma'am, I would have to manually override the sale price and apply the coupon manually as well. Then do it. I'm telling you it is not on sale and I am using my coupon or I am reporting you. Yes ma'am, if you insist. I got visual confirmation from my supervisor in the way of a hand signal we used to mean. Go ahead. She was not too happy when I did exactly as she demanded, and her total came to $21.60. You're stealing from me. I demand to speak to a manager. I'm never coming back here again. My shift supervisor had been on the next register over the whole time to combat the afternoon rush. That's how she managed to give the visual approval in the moment. She took great joy herself in telling Karen, you have the exact discounted price you demanded. You can pay it or leave. Oh, you're never coming back. Do you promise? Karen paid her $21.60 with her head hung. She was back next week. Grad Student told me to do things their way, so here's the context. Some years ago I worked at a cruise ship doing souvenir photography. It was my second summer there and we had a new manager that year that was finishing her master's in photography. Pay was based on a group split commission. So if the day photographers did terrible but the night photographers did amazing, the day photographers benefited and vice versa. My first year, the owner stopped by to train us and gave us specific instructions on how we should photograph guests and why we should be doing it, and saw an increase in sales as a result of it. The owner has been doing it for years and ran multiple locations, so I just listened and did what I was told. Fast forward to year 2. We have this new manager who had not been trained yet, but only received basic instructions and was told to defer to the returning employees for things she didn't understand. For the first couple of weeks it was fine. Slow start to the season, so sales of course weren't crazy. Come week 5 when night crews start, I noticed that myself and my only male coworker are both only being scheduled for mornings. At first I thought whatever, free at night? No big deal. I figured since the new manager was working with a returning employee, things would be okay for commission on the night cruise days. First week of night cruises goes by, and I notice I made drastically less than last year for the amount of hours I worked. I checked the sales spreadsheet and noticed that day sales were the same as night sales. I ran up to the ticket office to check the passenger list for the days they ran night cruises, assuming there just weren't many passengers. Not only were there way more passengers at night than during the day, but I noticed way more waste. Second week, I have a split shift that overlaps with the manager. She pulls me to the side at the beginning of the shift and explains her expectations for photos. She shows me an example of hers and then shows me one I took. She told me that the way I took photos was unacceptable and I had to shoot them the way she did. These photos, by the way, get put into 8x6 sheets and small wallet-sized photos. Her photo was highly technical, let's say. The entire top half of the photo was negative space and showing off the location. Yeah, sure. I kind of got what she was saying because I was in school for photography too. Too bad we're selling pictures of people and not space. I explained to her that myself and my coworkers have been shooting the way the owner himself instructed us to, and she said, I'm the manager here, not you. I don't know what he told you to do and that's not what we're doing. Do it the way I tell you to. Okay, the third week, I explained to my coworker that this is what the manager wanted, And he was confused as well. So we do it. We take these photos where the passengers are barely visible in the wallet photos and half of the photos are negative space. Sales plummeted to no surprise from anyone but the manager and owner. I got a phone call from the owner asking if there were fewer passengers or something, and told him that it was normal. He asked why sales were down at night as well, to which I told him I had no idea because I was never scheduled to work at night anymore. He wasn't sure how to take that, but we left it at that. The next week, the owner called me to inform me that the new manager had agreed to mutually terminate her employment there, and then asked why we were having so much trouble. I told him everything she told us to do and that scheduling was bad since it left us understaffed for night cruises. It turns out, she was instructed to hire new employees for the season, and she ignored every single applicant because they had no formal photography education. So, basically, knowing full well it would hurt sales to not tell the owner that the manager just wasn't good at sales photography, I just waited until she got in trouble for turning up losses because she pulled "you do what I say, I don't care." Sorry, Jay. Racism and house paint. Sorry, this is a little long. If you want to skip the setup, you can just read the last paragraph. This happened where I lived in college. It was a very liberal, progressive city, which was one of the reasons I chose to live there. So this incident really stuck with me. This one neighborhood on the outskirts of the city was a bunch of old tract homes, with the majority of them being homeowner occupied, and had a primarily Hispanic, Latin population. Well, as home prices skyrocketed, this neighborhood became one of the few affordable places to buy a home in the whole county. My friend and her brother had bought their house while the prices were still decent, and I was renting a room there. We are white but love the culture and are not trying to change it. It was the kind of place where on Fridays we would walk down to the neighborhood park where a bunch of taco trucks set up and eat and hang out with the neighbors. Everyone was very welcoming and we got invited to all kinds of cookouts, quinceañeras, and the first funeral I had ever been to that was a huge party with dancing and laughter that truly celebrated the person's life. Still one of my favorite neighborhoods ever. One day we are out front talking to the neighbor across the street, who is super nice and friendly. Suddenly, this older white woman quickly waddles up to us and just starts talking. She doesn't even introduce herself. Karen is talking to the neighbor in that very exaggerated way that means she doesn't think he speaks English, so she must speak loudly with big gestures. She tells him, not asks him, but tells him that it is time for him to paint his house. At this point, she is doing over-exaggerated Karate Kid paint the fence gestures and saying, "Paint, you know, paint the house." We are all stunned into silence with WTF looks on our faces as she keeps going. "That light blue is no good, no good. It's too bright, too bright. Do you understand?" Now, there is no HOA or city ordinance limiting the colors of the houses in this neighborhood, but none of the houses had any unusual or unique colors. These were tract homes with only about 5 different colors when they were built, and most of them were the original color or something similar. The neighbor's house was still the original color, so this light blue is not unique at all. It's literally one of the most basic colors and is on a lot of homes that were built during that time. So, my roommate, the neighbor, and I all find our voices at about the same time, with my roommate saying, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, "Who the fuck are you?" And the neighbor going off in a tirade of very loud and fast Spanish. But Karen is undaunted in her quest. Realizing my roommate and I speak English, she starts telling us how she just moved in and she's trying to protect her home's value, and it's obviously time for him to paint the house. And she wants the neighborhood to have a certain color palette with more neutral tones instead of this carnival thing that was going on now. My roommate and I keep interrupting her and telling her she is being racist. Nobody cares what she wants. The paint looks fine. She has no right to tell him what color he can paint his house, and this neighborhood's culture was established long before she showed up, so if she doesn't like it, she can move because she shouldn't have moved here in the first place with that attitude. Suddenly, the neighbor waves his hands in front of our faces while saying, "No, no, no, no," and then pointing to himself, and that's when we realize the neighbor is acting like he doesn't speak English. Since roommate and I know he speaks perfect English at this point, we are just trying to contain our laughter, waiting to see what he is going to do. Well, he starts talking to Karen in Spanish, the same slow, loud way she was talking to him in English, complete with big gestures and everything. Now, I don't know Spanish very well, but from what I could understand, he is telling her the colors of the houses in the neighborhood and how her house is blue and his house is blue, so what is her problem? Karen clearly doesn't understand and is getting more and more upset, but when she looks at us for help, we tell her that we don't understand what he's saying either. Karen is fuming and we are trying and failing to contain our laughter. This goes on for just a couple of minutes before the neighbor's 10-year-old son comes out on their porch and loudly asks him if they are going to grandma's for dinner. I in perfect English. The neighbor then turns to his son and says they are leaving as soon as mom gets back from the store. Also in perfect English. He then turns back to Karen and starts speaking to her in Spanish again, and although I don't know exactly what he said to her, there was definitely some swearing and at least one not nice name to call a woman. He then says to us, "See you Friday for dinner" in English, and walks away. It takes Karen a few seconds to realize what is going on. Then her face turns bright red and she is just sputtering, unable to put together a complete sentence. We just walked away, still laughing. Now here's the malicious compliance part. I think a couple of weeks later, I'm out of town for a couple of days and get back very late at night. As I'm getting my bags out of the car, I realize that it is very bright out. I know it's a full moon, but something is just not right. I start looking around thinking one of the neighbors must have put in some walkway lighting or maybe even a floodlight over the garage. And that's when I see it. The neighbor across the street had done what Karen wanted and painted his house a beautiful bright orange. And I mean, this thing was practically neon. Under the light of the full moon, the house actually looked like it glowed in the dark, and that was why it was especially bright out in the middle of the night. I laughed so hard I was in tears. The next day, seeing it in the daylight, the color was actually more of a peach than a neon and looked nice. But for whatever reason, it was glow in the dark orange. At night, it surprised no one that Karen turned her home into a rental and moved somewhere else. A director not being helpful. Time for malicious compliance. Settle in for a form of malicious compliance for not being helpful. This is long, but I promise to make it worth your while. I'm an IT director. Though I'm the only IT person in a nonprofit with 45 plus employees, the place I work is a toxic nightmare only because of the CEO. Everyone else is awesome. I didn't want to leave my job and my coworkers, but I was left with no choice. I was quiet quitting for several weeks while I interviewed for new positions. I took home all personal items from my office. The job market for an IT person of my caliber is like candy land right now. I quickly found a new position, and the day they officially welcomed me to the new company, I submitted my 2 weeks notice. Granted, I had been considering giving no notice and leaving with a fire and brimstone approach, but I read a lot of articles about resignation letters and avoiding any negativity, so I backed off and just gave a boilerplate 2 weeks notice resignation letter. Nothing positive, nothing negative. A coworker who wears several hats was tapped to be the interim director. I met with that person and the crew to develop a transition plan to avoid as much chaos as possible. They mostly work in social media and marketing, but during the pandemic I had trained them to be an emergency IT replacement in case anything happened to me. Though they will be okay for a few weeks, they simply do not have the experience to do all of the things I do. Network administration, systems administration, help desk, web development, app development, etc. I happen to be a unicorn of sorts, and a generalist that has done it all. We met with the CEO in a cramped office to review the transition plan. We immediately stated that the interim IT director would not be able to do their own job while they are running it. The CEO is a complete narcissist and deeply arrogant, while also being completely incompetent and lacking in the most basic IT skills. She immediately pushed back on the plan as basically this was not her idea. I tried to speak up and advocate for the coup and the interim IT director, as I've been doing the job for 5+ years. So I know the reality. There's no way they could possibly do it in their old job. She literally wouldn't let me finish a sentence. She wanted to see a checklist of my job duties. There are literally hundreds of pages of documentation for my role, which is not really possible to summarize into a checklist. Everyone in the meeting had been emailed a disaster recovery business continuity document that I wrote for my role. We referred her to the doc that everyone else was looking at. She complained that it hadn't been printed out for her. Lady. Everyone else in the meeting had their laptops open with the doc. I simply turned my laptop around and gently pushed it toward her. She flew off the handle. She wanted a printed copy. Also, she said, "You are not being helpful." I was literally in the meeting to be helpful. There are hyperlinks galore in this doc, so a printed copy would be useless. But I tried to oblige by taking my laptop back and started to print it. Before I could finish, she was standing next to my chair and was saying, "Are you going to move?" I guess she was trying to get past me to go to the printer. Not being helpful. "You have no idea what that looks like from your IT guy." I said, "Okay, I'm done," and went back to my office. Wrote a new resignation letter Went right back to the meeting and handed it in. Instead of leaving in 2 weeks, I will be leaving in 1 week. The CEO's jaw dropped to the floor. She was speechless. She just sputtered as I closed the door behind me. They already begged me to go back to 2 weeks' notice out of courtesy and professionalism. I just told them that courtesy and professionalism is a two-way street, and they hadn't earned it. I'm going to barely work for this last week, instead of tying up loose ends. I'll just not quite get around to finishing stuff while I watch them scramble. Good luck installing new software or updates on all of the computers that require an administrative password. Good luck handling the media coordinator who regularly creates network storms with his antiquated studio equipment. Good luck onboarding new staff with their accounts, passwords, and equipment needs. Good luck helping the CEO use her smartphone every day and helping her search for emails in her inbox with over 25K unread messages. Good luck with the security systems that I installed and maintained for 3 years. Good luck maintaining 10 websites. I will just sit back and watch the show. Malicious compliance is now the main course in a delicious meal, seasoned with the tears of a bitter, incompetent CEO. TLDR: narcissist CEO tells a director they aren't being helpful during transition planning after submitting 2 weeks' notice. Now it's 1 week notice, and malicious compliance to the bitter end. Edit: wow, I thought I might get a few upvotes. But damn, thank you everyone. Let's keep it rolling. Here is a tasty preview of what is to come. I am now one of 4 people resigning in August, and it's only the first week. The dam is bursting. Edit number 2. There are many comments where PPL said I should have quit immediately instead of changing it to 1 week. What's the fun in that? I get a front row seat to the best show on earth. Also, I reserve my power. If I get treated with disrespect again, I'll shorten it to 3 days again, and 1 day again, and bye. The CEO rarely experienced natural consequences. This will be my masterclass in that. Edit number 3. Though this may not fit the strict definition of malicious compliance, I hope you are entertained regardless. Further, malicious compliance usually happens in top-down orgs with a healthy dose of micromanagement, which is absolutely my situation. If you are still not convinced, I promise updates about my passive-aggressive acts of malicious compliance throughout my final week. Edit number 4. My age is 51 was a typo. It was in the same sentence as 45 plus employees. Some comments were trolling me over that point. Okay, not sure what point you were trying to make. To add, yep, there really are people like us. This is not fiction. Some of them have already added comments. I've been in tech since 1995. And I learned whatever I could to make a living. That's not a flex. It's just what I did to survive.